Hey guys, welcome back. So last time we added our ideas controller just to get things started and get it connected to our database. But today we're just gonna get some quality of life things out of the way. So we want to get a better error handler. So if I start the server right now, do 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 do, you should go up, and there we go. All right, cool. Um, so our error handler right now looks a little bit like this. Let's just go do that. Status code, error message. Not a lot of information. So let's actually change this up a little bit. So for that, I'm gonna add another workspace. We're gonna create a shared folder. So make directory source shared. And in here, we're gonna make, what's this thing called? Source shared, an HTTP error filter .ts. I'm actually gonna quit that. So there. All right. So let's register our paths from NestJS common, I believe, and let's do this. So catch, and we're gonna want to catch all errors. So we're not gonna pass in any arguments into the decorator. Export class HTTP error filter. All right, so there's our basic class, and it's actually gonna do some polymorphism on the exception filter. Exception filter. And with that, we need a catch method. And that's all we need. So what are we catching? We're catching all thrown errors. And the catch method accepts two arguments. Exception. Exception, if I can spell. Which is of type HTTP exception. And then it also gives us a host argument, which is the host argument, or argument host. There you go. And right now we're just gonna do a response. Wait, no. I have to get the context first. Context is equal to host dot switch to HTTP, and response is going to be context dot get response. Let's also get the request object. Request equals context dot get request. Okay, and we just do a response dot status 404 JSON found equals false for now. So this is just a simple 404 not found error handler, and if the only thing we need to do is actually add it to our application. So inside of app module, inside of providers, we're gonna give a object that needs two properties: provide, and this one is going to be of type app filter, which comes from NestJS, and we're going to use the class HTTP error filter is the one that we created. So let's make sure we add the dot slash and put this up here, save, and we just do a yarn start dev again. All right, let's go back to this. So there's our error handler. Now this is really bad error handling. So we're actually gonna add some information in here. So we have access to the request object, the response object, as well as the context. And let's see, what we're gonna build an error response right now. Error response equals to an object, and we're just gonna send that in. Error response. And let's see. We also want to get the status code. So const status equals to exception.getStatus, and that'll be inside the code, or the code property status. And we also want to pass in the status to the actual response. So status here. And let's see, what else do we want in a good error handler? The timestamp would be nice. And just do a new date. And we're gonna do it to let's go with local date string. And the path is gonna be request.url. We also would like to have the method, which would be pretty nice. So request.method. And then finally, let's add in an error message. Now this comes from the HTTP exception. And if we hover over, see what is it gonna. Actually, let's take a peek. And we're gonna see response, status, and message. And it looks like message is anything. So let's just. Actually, I'm gonna close node modules really quick because oh my god. Okay. So in here, let's just do exception.message for now. Save and send the request. And we don't actually want all of this. We want this line here. So message error. So dot error. But if message.error doesn't exist, we should just give the exception.message. Send again, and there we go. Actually, I'm gonna do some null safe type checking. So there. Now that's all we need for the error handler, and it looks pretty good on my end. So if we go to a different error, so let's go to like let's send a delete request actually. Delete to something. And there we go. So everything looks good. So the only thing left is you'll notice that in our logs we don't really have a lot of information here. So let's add an error logging. Updates available now. I'm good. Later. Good night. Okay, so let's import the logger from NestJS. And we're just gonna do a log.error here. And let's see, so it takes in 3 strings. Stack, whoops, and the context. I'll just do exception filter for now. And let's see, what would be a good log? Let's go with request.url, and actually let's put in the method first. So request dot method space request dot URL, then the stack trace, then the exception filters. So we just save and let it reboot and send. We get an error log and the actual stack trace. Now I don't really think the stack trace is all that helpful, so instead of stack, I'm gonna provide a different thing in here. I'm actually gonna provide the actual error response that we built, and it's an object, so we want to stringify it. So we just do a JSON that's stringify here, and we send the error again. And there's something much more readable, so we have all the information that we just created in our error response, so code, timestamp, the path, and the method, as well as the message. Okay, so with that out of the way, the next thing that I want to do is provide logging in all of our requests, mostly so we could track what's happening in our server, what's getting done, and all of that. So let's close this out. So a filter happens, I believe, after a request is caught, or we catch a thrown error. However, we want the logging service to actually take into account before and after a request, so then we could, track performance, like how long a request takes and all of that. And with that, we actually need something called an interceptor. So let's just make that source shared, and now just call it logging.interceptor.ts, and let it happen. All right. So pretty similar from NestJS slash common, I believe. And we're just gonna do the @injectable to make it into a service. Export class logging interceptor. And this is gonna implement the nest interceptor. And with that, we need an actual intercept function for it to be happy. What does it need? Method. Oh, it needs to return something. I believe it is a promise or an observable. Okay. We're actually going to use promises. Or not promise. We're actually going to use an observable here. Observable. Just do type of any. Here. And let's add in the actual arguments really quick. This is going to be the execution context. And then an actual observable. So let's do this. Call observable any. Okay. And now this squiggly line is saying that we're not returning it. We're not returning anything actually, so we need to fix that. So let's do return call, and now everything's happy. But it's not really doing anything. So quickly to go over observables. So a promise is something that does an asynchronous request or asynchronous task, but it only does it one time. Whereas an observable is more like a data stream. So you could do multiple asynchronous things over a period of time. So in here, we're gonna let's go get the request object, and that's gonna be context dot switch to HTTP dot get request, and from that we can get the method request dot method. We can also get the URL, and then of course we need a date.now, so then we can track performance. So let's see. So with the observable, we need to pipe things and okay. And the observable method that we're going to use is tap. And that is gonna, where's that coming from? That's odd. Import tap from RxJS slash operators. Tap. There. Okay. And we're also going to use the logger here. Dot log. And let's just add in the same log that we had in our error handler. It's going to be the method first, followed by the URL. And we're also going to track in the difference in time that it takes to complete this request. So date.now minus now, and we just do milliseconds. And then the next thing we need is inside of here is the context. And because we're using the execution context, we could actually get the class that is doing the, there we go, the class that is doing the operation. So context.getClass will give us the controller that, or the service, no, I'm pretty sure it's the controller that is doing the thing. So with that out of the way, let's include it into our module, our app module. So in here, provide app interceptor, and we're going to use the class that we just created, which is called logging interceptor. We'll save, and then we're just going to run the app and see it happen. So yarn start dev. Okay, server is running. So send the error, which we already had. It's coming from the exception handler or the filter. And let's go to the root path, which is given to us by the app controller. And it's get slash. It only took 1 millisecond. But if we go to something that needs to wait a little bit, like our database, we can go to slash idea, which right now is empty. But you can see that it gives us the idea controller that's doing the operation. And it actually took us 21 milliseconds to check the database if we have anything and all of that. And then this last timestamp is the time of how long this instance has been running for. I believe either that or it's, no, yeah, that should be right. All right, and yeah, that's all I want to go over for now. I think in the next video we're gonna add some more stuff. Oh, and then also the reason why I'm adding the providers here rather than in a global scope is because This is for our REST API, so we're using HTTP. Um, Later on, we're also gonna implement WebSockets as well as GraphQL, and these are gonna be um, what's the word? It's basically not gonna be enough for what we need. All right, so I'll see you guys next time.